friends, welcome to my reading log of Marple, 12 New Mysteries by various authors. This book is a reimagining of Miss Marple stories by Agatha Christie by 12 very famous female mystery authors. This vlog will be actually a listening vlog because I have this book on my audiobook application. And I will start listening and then comment on them and individually rank them. For my ranking, I will first of all give my general enjoyment of the mystery. And then I will increase or decrease my rating according to the suitability of the story being a Marple story or not. Book starts with Evil in Small Cities by Lucy Foley. I listened to two short stories from this collection. I actually did listen to this during the reading sprints by Janelle at Too Fond of Books. She is the co-host of Cloak and Dagger Christmas Readathon. And she's doing reading sprints in celebration of this event. And she's also on my team, Team Marple. And we had a fantastic chat with the other friends between the reading sprints. Anyway, the first short story that I listened to, Evil in Small Cities by Lucy Foley, as I mentioned before. I actually quite liked this mystery as a short story. It was very clear and it also had a surprise element which I liked very much. On the other hand, I did not feel like this short story was a Marple short story. I kept thinking that this work should have been reimagined as a Poirot story because Miss Marple talks a lot and actually brags a lot about her intelligence, which is the definition of Poirot in my opinion. Tries to get attention from the police, from her friends, everybody else. So I thought it was a bit disappointing in terms of being a Marple story. Even though I originally gave Evil in Small Cities by Lucy Foley a 7 out of 10 as a mystery short story, I will decrease my rating 1 point and give it a 6 out of 10. And the second short story was called The Second Murder at the Vicarage by McDermid. This was a shorter one. It is imagined that a second murder happens in the Vicarage, which kick-started the Marple novel series, Murder at the Vicarage. Maybe because the environment was similar and Marple was not trying to get any attention at all. I thought this short story was better constructed as a Marple story. On the other hand, I thought the mystery was uninteresting, and I have to say I gave it a 6 out of 10. There was nothing very extraordinary which shouts out like it's a Marple story for sure. So I kept the rating of 6 out of 10 for this short story. I finished reading Miss Marple Takes Manhattan by Alyssa Cole in the book 12 New Mysteries. This short story was a big disappointment for me. First of all, the mystery started the last third of the book. So I was really thinking if there was going to be a crime committed. And that kept me out of the story. I found the characters other than Miss Marple to be very, very annoying, including her charming niece Raymond West. One additional factor that I did not like this short story was that the audiobook narrator kept shouting, which is a kind of acting that I really do despise. You do not have to shout to convey strong emotions, in my opinion, of course. Even though I did not take out points for character of Miss Marple not fitting, I gave the short story Miss Marple Takes Manhattan by Alyssa 5 out of 10, and I really had high hopes, especially for this short story, so this was really a big disappointment for me. I finished the fourth short story in Marple 12 New Mysteries collection. And I read The Unraveling by Natalie Haynes. Finally, I managed to find a short story which I felt like I was truly reading a Miss Marple story. The dynamic between Miss Marple and her neighbor was it was presented in the Agatha Christie books, and I also really did admire the description of the St. Mary Mead, the small town. So the mystery is not one of the best mysteries I've read, and I thought it was a 7 out of 10. Because this short story felt so much like a Marple story, I increased the rating 1 point and I gave The Unraveling by Natalie Haynes an 8 out of 10. I finished 2 more stories from Marple 12 New Mysteries. The first one that I finished was Miss Marple's Christmas by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware has written many stories inspired by Agatha Christie, and I think she knows Agatha Christie really well. Miss Marple's Christmas takes place in Dolly and Colonel Bantry's house, Gossington Hall, the house in which my favorite Miss Marple story, The Body in the Library, takes place. And maybe because of this familiarity with the some of the side characters as well as the house, I really felt like I was reading a Marple story. Miss Marple was involved in the exactly right amount, and her character was very much similar to the character that Agatha Christie imagined her to be. Characters being mildly related to one another made the story felt so much like a Marple story. The mystery could have been better, so I gave it 7 out of 10. With the additional point of being a quite good Miss Marple story, I gave Miss Marple's Christmas by Ruth Ware an 8 out of 10. The second story was also written by a more famous author, Naomi Alderman. In the short story, The Open Mind, I found the mystery to be a bit dull, and although I really did like the writing style of Naomi Alderman, I have to say the character of Miss Marple acted very natural. What I mean to say is that she did not act out of character, but I also did not feel like that this short story was written for Miss Marple. Any amateur sleuth could have been involved in this mystery, and it would still be a mystery with a mediocre plot. So I gave An Open Mind by Naomi Alderman a 6 out of 10. I finished 2 more short stories from Marple 12 New Mysteries. I'm really glad these 2 short stories were back to back so that I could compare those in a single video clip. First short story that I finished was a Jade Empress by Jane Kwok. This short story takes place in a cruiser which is taking Miss Marple to Hong Kong, to her nephew who's temporarily staying at Hong Kong. And a murder takes place in that ship. In this mystery, the author included some elements from her cultural heritage, and it was integrated so good with the story. It added additional richness to the already oriental story. I really like that aspect of the story. The mystery was decent. Moreover, the character of Jane Marple was just right on point. She was old-fashioned, a Victorian lady, but she was not prejudiced and open to all of the human behavior and the traditions of the Chinese culture. And she was naturally curious to know about those traditions, which did not feel like the author was trying very hard. It suited so well with Miss Marple. I gave the mystery and the whole story a 7 out of 10, and with an additional rating of this story feeling like a Marple story, I gave A Jade Empress by Jane Kwok an 8 out of 10. The second short story, A Deadly Wedding Day by Dreda Say Mitchell, had a similar premise. A mysterious woman is murdered in a wedding in which the bride is from the Caribbean culture. And Miss Marple and the aunt of the bride try to investigate who killed that woman. There were also elements of Caribbean culture integrated in the story, but I have to say it felt really forced and too loud for a Marple story, which is all about subtlety, in my opinion, of course. The mystery was mediocre. The solution felt reasonable, but did it feel like a Miss Marple story? I'm not really sure, because although the character of Aunt Elsie was very impressive, she overshadowed Miss Marple. Not something that is seen in Marple stories. Marple can be seen as in the background, but she is the real star of her story. So I did not add an additional point to my original rating, which was 6 out of 10. Finished the 9th and 10th story in the book Marple 12 New Mysteries. The first story that I finished was Murder at the Villa Rosa by Elly Griffiths. I really did like this short story. It was very different from the other mysteries. But this difference actually made the short story not to be suitable for a Marple retelling, because this was not an actually whodunit detective story. So even though Miss Marple did not act very dissimilar to her character, I had to give it a minus in terms of if it is being a Miss Marple story or not. So the rating was decreased from 8 out of 10 to 7 out of 10. But I will certainly read more works from Elly Griffiths, because I really did like her writing style. It was so easy to follow, and it also had an element of three-dimensional characters, which I liked very much in mysteries. The second short story was The Murdering Sword by Karen McMannus. This short story was also one of the best short stories among the ones that I have read. And this was a really Miss Marple story. The story is told from Miss Marple's great-grandniece, who's a teenager, and that's why she could be in the action without thinking about it. Miss Marple being like a sort of advisory role, which is the formula for especially later Miss Marple novels, some other young character being in the action instead of Miss Marple. I also really did enjoy the mystery, interesting and different, so I gave the short story an 8 out of 10 and increased its rating by 1. I gave The Murdering Sword by Karen McMannus a 9 out of 10, so far the highest rated short story in the collection. I finished the last two stories in Marple 12 New Mysteries collection. The first short story was The Mystery of the Acid Soil by Kate Mosse. First of all, I want to say that I was very impressed by the writing style of Kate Mosse. She is an author known for historical mysteries, and it was shown how much she knew about the period. And I will certainly read more from her. However, I thought this short story should have been a novel, because it had many complex threads, which felt a bit rushed to be sold in a short story. And additionally, I thought the plot could have worked much better if it was a Poirot story with clueless Hastings was the sidekick instead of Miss Marple and Miss Emmeline in this short story. Miss Marple usually does not go into the action, and although she did not do things that required physical act, she was certainly in danger in some parts, which actually rarely happens in Marple stories. But overall, there was nothing wrong with the characterization of Miss Marple. It was true to the books. So I gave the short story, The Mystery of the Acid Soil by Kate Mosse, a 7 out of 10. I did not add or subtract any extra points from the rating. And the second short story that I finished was from Leigh Bardugo, titled The Disappearance. Leigh Bardugo is a very beloved author in BookTube, and I can see the reason why, because her writing style is impressive. On the other hand, the mystery did not make any sense, and up until the end, I thought the author captured the atmosphere of the small town, especially the town of McDermid, quite well, but the ending was so disappointing, and like I said before, the solution of the mystery did not make any sense. And moreover, Marple acted so out of place with the character that Agatha Christie created, and also there were some very odd things about the side characters, very dear to my heart. So for the sake of the beginning of the story, I gave the story a 6 out of 10. Because of the very odd behavior of Miss Marple at the end, I decreased the rating by 1 and gave The Disappearance by Leigh Bardugo 5 out of 10. Oh, hello, bookish friends. How are you all, young ones? I hope you are having such a wonderful day. I was asked by Berna. She's a wonderful, lovely young lady from Turkey. And she's also the captain of my team in some sort of readathon that is going on in a platform called YouTube, apparently. My grandnephew Raymond Jr. Showed me the video that she made about Marple 12 new stories, and that lovely young lady who I became very fond of asked me to evaluate Marple 12 new mysteries by very talented women young authors who wrote about me. I was expecting a physical book, and then around disc came, and I again asked my grandnephew Raymond Jr. and he said that Aunt Jane, this is an audiobook, and you can listen to books while knitting. And that really changed my life, I have to admit. I now have such fondness for audiobooks. Anyway, I listened to the short story collection Marple 12 New Mysteries. And I have to say I enjoyed all of the stories, but I enjoyed some of them a bit more. And there were some stories which I thought understood me better. They were the stories by Ruth Ware, Natalie Haynes, Jane Kwok, and especially Karen McMannus. I completely pictured myself getting into adventures written by them. Also really enjoyed my part as an advisor in Murder at the Villa Rosa, even though that story was not a mystery. And unfortunately, I was not very fond of two stories, which were Miss Marple Takes Manhattan. What am I doing in Manhattan? I don't know. I'm not sure I can cope being in Manhattan. And The Disappearance. I was very annoyed with what they did to my dear friend Dolly. other than that, I thought it was a decent book. When you do not expect my stories to be written by great Agatha Christie, because she was a dear friend of mine who knew me really well. But I also want to thank these young ladies for their effort. It's really such a privilege to be the star of their stories too. Oh, you're still there. Oh, yeah, I forgot that Berna asked me to do Turkish Word of the Day. I completely forgot. Can't blame it on old age. Anyway, she said that she chose 12 for Turkish Word of the Day. I will try to say as best as I can in Turkish. 12 means 12 in Turkish, and 12 is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.